I'm Sarah Gallo, Vice President of Product Policy for the Consumer Brands Association. We're excited you have joined us for today's Industry Solutions session, Taste Technologies that can help industry support the National Nutrition Strategy. This series provides overviews of broad topics that are top of mind for CPG professionals. A couple of housekeeping items before we get started. Everyone's line was muted upon entry to reduce background noise. If you have a question during today's session, we will share contact information for our speakers at the end of the presentation, and we encourage you to reach out to them directly. Let's dive into today's session. The FDA is currently exploring ways to empower consumers to select and have access to healthy food. The FDA's labeling initiatives, whether it's the front of pack nutrition labeling scheme or healthy claims, are intended to make it easier for consumers to quickly identify foods that are part of a healthy eating pattern. I'm excited to be joined by several professionals from Kerry to discuss how their technologies can help improve your product's nutritional profiles while continuing to delight consumers. First up is Shannon Coco, Strategic Marketing Director. I'll turn it over to you, Shannon, to introduce yourself and your colleagues.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for that introduction. We're honored to be here today with all of you on this beautiful Thursday. As Sarah said, you're going to hear from a number of Kerry colleagues today who are experts across the market, regulatory, and taste landscape as we share insights that can help you in developing products that meet the guidelines set out by the National Nutrition Strategy without compromising on the taste experience. My name is Shannon Coco, and I'm the Strategic Marketing Director for Kerry in North America. And today I'm joined by Cheryl Dreyer, our Director of Regulatory Policy and Intelligence, Matthew Walter, our Business Development Vice President for Taste in Traditional and Future Proteins, Angela Getzel, Business Development Director for Beverage and Sweet Taste, and Julie Beauchemin, Marketing Manager for Taste. You'll hear from each of us as we dig into the unmet consumer need, the national strategy, and its role in delivering sweet optimization and salt perception. Finally, we'll provide links to resources that can support you on your development journey. We do encourage you to ask questions, as Sarah said, so we will do our best to address them in the session and we'll follow up as needed. So let's dig in. So the US government, as Sarah mentioned, has provided dietary advice to the public for more than 100 years, with sugar, sodium, and fat among the main topics. So why are we talking about it today and what's different now? Well, what we see is different is that there are a number of demands that are really colliding to drive change. The first is industry demands. Between the FDA and the World Health Organization, we're seeing that the role of sugar and salt in being a cost-effective measure to increase the overall consumer health of our population, then that opportunity has never been more critical and more open to all of us as an industry. We're seeing product demands. Sugar and salt as an experience that tastes good, that's the benefit that a lot of consumers perceive it delivers. And then the third is consumer demands that translate to us, particularly in North America. Our consumers from our research across the world found that they're most likely to approach healthy eating by limiting or reducing products and ingredients that they view as bad for them. And the top three considerations of ingredients that they deem bad are sugar, sodium, and fat. So today, in particular, we're going to dig into sugar and sodium. So as we always do at Kerry, we start with the consumer and what do they need? We talked a little bit about the FDA recommendations out of the latest National Nutrition Strategy, where they recommend that we all consume less than 12 tablespoons of sugar and less than 2,300 milligrams of sodium in a day. So think about how much do you consume in a day or your family? Do you even know how much you consume in a day? So what we found is that the average North American consumer consumes a lot more than they think they might, with most consuming 40 to 50% more than the daily recommendation, averaging 17 teaspoons of sugar and 3,400 milligrams of sodium typically. In addition, we found that 20% of consumers do not even know how much they consume, and another 40% believe that they actually consume less than half of the guidance. So quite a different story from maybe what reality is. So we know consumers and all of us as consumers have the best intentions of meeting the daily value guidance when we get up in the morning, maybe. But there is a gap between those great intentions that everybody has and the current behaviors that we are seeing. So in terms of what that starts to look like, we recognize that there's different types of consumers and different levels of knowledge around nutrition, particularly when it comes to sugar and sodium. So we as Kerry dug into some of this research by conducting our Sensibly Sweet proprietary research study this year, which focused on uncovering consumers' changing relationship with sweetness. The research provides a global view covering 24 countries across 6 regions. Here in North America, we discovered 3 overarching consumer types: the reduced sugar seekers, the taste chasers, and the zero sugar advocates. The reduced sugar seekers is a group that would like to be healthy and live well, so they're trying to reduce the amount of sugar that they consume in their food and drink. This is our largest group, representing nearly 7 in 10 of our entire North American population. It's also the group that has 63% of Gen Z. So this group does skew actually the youngest when it comes to sugar. They're driven by a desire to live a healthier lifestyle, as they believe that sugar increases the risk of heart attack and causes disease. And while the majority of this group does not have any dietary restrictions, they are actively decreasing their sugar intake by cutting down on sweets to support a healthy life now and into the future. Our second group is the taste chasers. The taste chasers put taste first and foremost, and they do not prioritize sugar reduction. They strive to eat everything in moderation, believing that sugar makes food and beverages taste good. They typically consume the most sugar every day. So while they recognize that sugar can create weight gain and other potential side effects, they're most likely not to follow a diet. This group skews the oldest, with boomers and Gen Z highly represented. And our third sugar group is the zero sugar advocates. They represent 13% of the population in North America. They're a small but mighty cohort that strive to live healthily, and they are consciously managing their weight by eliminating sugar where possible. Because of this drive, they regularly read the details on product packaging. And while they're advocates of zero sugar, they do understand that it plays an essential role as a fuel source for the body. But unlike maybe the reduced sugar seekers, they know it's addictive and they're looking to eliminate it versus reduce it. This group is typically following more tailored diets, with flexitarianism, low carb, and plant-based most common. We've also seen a wide variety of diets, such as the Mediterranean diet and intermittent fasting, also coming to the fore for this group. This group skews towards households that have kids in particular, but also towards men, which was probably one of the most surprising findings for us as a group overall. Across North America, we also found that 71% of consumers prefer natural sweeteners. The number one natural sweetener may not be a surprise to some of you. It's honey. Honey was the consistent favorite across all 24 countries in our study, and other top natural sweetener sources were sugar, was the second, maple syrup, and stevia. So while we know that North American consumers prefer natural sweeteners, we also wanted to understand what were some of the deterrents of artificial sweeteners. So when it came to artificial sweeteners, all groups avoided them, mostly because they believed them to be bad for their health, with reduced sugar seekers and zero sugar advocates also believing that they cause harmful side effects. Beyond health, the other top theme was taste. You'll see across all 3, there's themes, some of the callouts being dislike of the taste, dislike of the aftertaste, and how the sweetener changed the product's overall flavor experience. So we'll dive into how you can address these challenges when you're developing in a moment with Angela, who will have some great insight to share from that front. But before we do, let's just talk briefly about sodium. So sodium is the other key theme that drives consumer taste experience. Yet, did you know that even a 12% reduction in sodium can really play a big impact role when it comes to healthcare? We mentioned it as one of the most cost-effective opportunities that the World Health Organization has identified in terms of creating better consumer overall health. And from our own analysis found that even a 12% reduction in sodium can prevent 450,000 cases of cardiovascular disease annually. That, as a savings to us as a government and an industry, equates to about $40 billion in healthcare costs over a 20-year period between the US and Canada. Some of the biggest triggers for sodium in foods are the processed foods that many of us work on and enjoy every day. Sandwiches, pizza, soup, savory snacks, and meat are some of the biggest drivers of sodium intakes for consumer. So let's talk, similarly to sugar, about what consumers need or are looking for when it comes to sodium. So similar to sugar, there are 3 overarching groups. You'll see that some of the themes are very similar, but there are nuances that we wanted to share with you. So the reduced sodium seekers are also driven by the want to live a healthier lifestyle. Yet, unlike with sugar, this group skews towards boomers and households with kids. This skew is related to the health-related diet restrictions that this group in particular is taking on. If you think about a lot of the age of our boomer population, many of them are very conscious of the link between sodium and the risk of cardiovascular disease to them in the immediate term. As well as that, we see that parents in particular are also being very conscious to limit their children's sodium intake. So those 2 dynamics definitely are a nuance when it comes to sodium that's very different from what we saw in sugar being skewing towards millennial and Gen Z. We also have a taste chaser group in the sodium space. And while the consumer sentiment is the same, the majority is also not adhering to any specific dietary restrictions when it comes to sodium. And this group is actually led by Gen Z. We found that Gen Z loves salt. Given the ethnic diversity and the global cuisine that Gen Z has grown up with and been exposed to, we're seeing, a much stronger generation of foodies that are more inclined to seek out salty flavors. And our third group in sodium relates to healthy living lifestyles. This final group is similar to our zero sugar advocates. This group focuses on a lifestyle that's health conscious, yet they are also seeking functional and nutrition boosting products. There are consumers that are looking for more personalized nutritional advice, often using digital platforms, perhaps such as Noon or MyFitnessPal. But the majority of them are also identifying as flexitarian or health focused. Typically, this group is skewing towards Gen Z and millennials and households without kids. So think about couples and single individuals that are still in the young adult space in particular. So now that we understand who our consumers are and what drives them, let's talk about how we translate that to the National Nutrition Strategy. Cheryl, over to you.
Thank you, Shannon. Okay. So last September, the Biden-Harris administration hosted the White House Conference on Hunger, Nutrition, and Health, the first in over 50 years, and released its national strategy. The goal is to end hunger in America and increase healthy eating and physical activity by the year 2030, so fewer Americans experience diet-related diseases. Agencies across the federal government have made progress toward the actions and priorities laid out in the national strategy, which cross 5 pillars. Today's focus is on Pillar 3, empowering all consumers to make and have access to healthy food. It is important for our industry because there are areas that we can specifically support, and these initiatives will also impact how we formulate and label products. Okay. The FDA is supporting the pillar with the following actions. The front of pack labeling schemes for food packages are currently being tested with the intent to help consumers, particularly those with lower nutrition literacy, quickly and easily identify foods that can help them build a healthy eating pattern. It's really meant to complement the nutrition facts panel by displaying simplified, at-a-glance nutrition information and giving consumers additional context to help them quickly make more informed food selections. I've put some examples to the right top of the slide. And then next, as we all know, The agency is in the process of redefining the nutrient content claim healthy by aligning current nutrition science, the nutrition facts label, and the dietary guidelines for Americans. The proposed rule will require products making the claim to contain a meaningful amount of food from a food group, or what we call food group equivalents, while also limiting certain nutrients like saturated fat, sodium, and added sugars. The agency is also considering the use of an icon to represent the claim. And please see examples on the bottom right of the slide. And onto the sodium reduction. The agency began facilitating sodium reduction in the food supply by issuing voluntary sodium targets for industry with the goal to decrease sodium intake by about 12% from 3,400 milligrams to 3,000 milligrams per day. The 2.5-year period was initiated in October of 2021 and will conclude next spring and be evaluated for potential subsequent targets in the future. And finally, of course, we know there's continued effort on steps to reduce sugars, specifically added sugars, including a potential voluntary target, and also saturated fat in the American diet. As you can see, this slide summarizes the FDA's nutrition initiatives of reducing sodium in the food supply, promoting healthy habits early on, updating and making labeling more accessible, educating consumers, and of course, supporting innovation, such as modernizing standards of identities, and including the proposal to allow salt substitutes when required as an ingredient or optional as part of a standard of identity. Ultimately, as the food industry, we have a part to play in all these initiatives, which can help improve public health of Americans. Now I'm going to pass it over to Angela to speak about the sweetness optimization opportunities.
So now let's take a little more in-depth look at how these new regulations that Cheryl had just spoke of and the other overall trends that Shannon referred to will play out in product development and innovation for sweetness modified products. So as most everyone knows, sugar is much more than just sweetness. So beyond its functional properties in items like bakery items, it often offers a balance to counterpart bitterness or other functional ingredients. So when you decrease the sugar content, you're now increasing the perception of sour, you're uncovering the bitter off notes, and you're losing that really fantastic mouthfeel and syrup viscosity that it provides. So now you have a product that's terribly unbalanced. So what needs to happen to bring it back to a delicious and now newly nutritious product? So you must build back all the elements that comprise the full flavor profile. So building an upfront sweetness that helps mimic the onset of sugar, boosting that main sweetness in the middle and syrup viscosity, and then be sure that the lingering is similar to sugar and the fact that it doesn't linger too long and there's not any prolonged off notes, etc. So as you can see from the sweetness curves in front of you, every sweetener having a different profile from sugar. So it's important to understand the taste curve versus sugar to allow for the best product. So for instance, if you were using something like an ACE K, you'll see it's very early onset. So you need to use as much upfront sweetness addition in a modulator as you would if you were using something like a Reb A. But reverse, you would need to use more maskers to linger the linger of a Reb A product, which you wouldn't need to use as much in something like an ACE K. So now that we understand the sweet side of the coin, let's move to the dark bitter side. So as important as it is to balance the sweetness, it may be even more important to understand the bitterness that comes along with the reduction in sugar and the additional bitterness that you may be adding with your non-nutritive sweetener. So I think everyone kind of thinks about the off notes that bloom when you take away the sugar, but not a lot of people focus on what the solutions are adding to it also. So stevia is very popular because it's a natural high intensity sweetener, but it comes with an exceptional amount of bitterness compared to its other counterparts. So how do you bring this knowledge of the bitter side? How do you bring this all together to build a more nutritious product that still tastes delicious? So as Shannon had noted in the research, the common theme amongst all the demographics was taste. So they all had different reasons why they were looking for sugar optimization. Some of them weren't really looking for sugar optimization at all, but each of them was looking for a product that really tasted fantastic. So they gravitate for different reasons, but in the end, all consumers will buy products once for packaging, health claims, etc., but they'll only repeat a purchase if it tastes good. So to address these problems, Kerry has created Taste Sense. That is a portfolio of natural flavor modulators that help you and your developers balance the sweet intensity, as we had talked about, and the profile to create an optimized overall taste, all while meeting the new regulations that had been discussed and helping meet your sustainability goals by decreasing your carbon footprint and saving water. So you get the bonus of also not only having a healthier product, but having a healthier environment too. So we even offered this Taste Sense products in organic certified, and that's the only one available on the market. So I will now turn you over to Matthew to discuss the salty side of life.
Thank you, Angela. So thanks again for welcoming us here today. As Angela said, she's the sweet one, I'm the salty one. So let's talk about sodium reduction, or as we like to refer to it, salt perception. The reason we refer to this perception is as you're reducing, the perception of salt on the tongue or within an end application changes. It's not one-dimensional. It's much more complex than that. If you think about a balloon and you press on the balloon from one side, the other side grows bigger, or from the bottom, or two sides, you're affecting the overall roundness of a product, the eating experience, the quality of the finished product itself. So it's very important as you're reducing sodium to ensure that what you're putting back to enhance that salt perception is doing it in a way that is similar to the effects of salt. Now, that's the taste part, but salt also is extremely functional. It has a preservation quality to it, or value to it. So for shelf life, as you begin to reduce salt in processed meats, of course, that's going to have an impact on the shelf life, which then leads into sustainability. Luckily with Kerry, the breadth and depth of the portfolio, not only can we manage the taste part, but we can manage the preservation part as well through our natural preservation portfolio that we have, which then, of course, we understand that taste, preservation, but salt also is extremely important in developing texture in meat products. It extracts protein, allows for binding, holding water, making things that are more cost effective, if you will. And again, because of our breadth and depth and understanding of the meat industry, we can influence in a positive way all three should something fall out of line in regards to the finished product and what the eating experience should be, or what your shelf life needs to be, or what your yield would need to be. So as we think about salt, again, it is this perception. You have this upfront impact, and I always liken the upfront impact to if you've been to the beach and accidentally turned around and had your mouth open and a wave of salt water washes in. It's that instant jolt, and that's the ion of salt, so sodium chloride, chloride being the ion, hitting the ion channel. Then it'll slowly wash away, body depth, and you get some lingering of what we're calling juiciness as well. Too much of that salt, obviously a negative impact on health, but also a negative impact on the overall perception of the flavor within a finished product. Generally speaking, most products were developed were for what we call punch or upfront impact. What we're learning through our sensory science, or have learned, is understanding the correct amount of salt and how that interacts with, whether that be a G-coupled protein receptor, which is the umami receptor, the balance between those two, and its effect on your things like your herbs, your spices, giving roasted character to a chicken breast. All of those are interdependent on each other. So again, it's the balloon. Press too much on one side, it becomes elongated on the other. Too much, it loses its shape. It's important to keep the overall shape, the roundness of the entire eating experience, and pushing from either side disrupts that. And that's where our expertise will come to play. So let's visualize that curve. So that upfront impact, that body, that lingering. So you see an immediate drop off, you hit the middle, that lingering late juiciness. And that upfront impact, of course, is critical, but what is the intensity that it needs to be? And we'll talk about different salt levels in a minute. Body depth, again, gives you that mouthful experience. A lot of people out there make the assumption that, well, I can replace salt by using MSG. You cannot. MSG hits the G-coupled protein receptor. Salt goes through an ion channel. Two different taste sensations. Now, is there a synergy between the two? Absolutely, but one does not replace the other. And that late lingering juiciness is key for what we would call one of the key aspects of what we would call craveability. So we take that first bite, yes, it's enjoyable, but I want to eat more. Understanding that role in the overall eating experience is critical in really developing a product that has repeat purchase intent and really drives enjoyment. So when we look at the visualization of reducing salt, what we do see running through our sensory panels, as you drop the salt level, that curve line does remain the same. It's the intensity that drops. And again, due to the ion channel. So as by way of an example, that ion channel, let's think of it as a drain in the bottom of your sink. Fill the sink too fast, or there's a clog in it, it overflows. So what we want to do is ensure that you're getting the right amount of the ion through the channel to trigger your brain and that this is an enjoyable eating experience, and not wash over or fill up the sink. So understanding exactly where that sodium level needs to be is critical in delivering that overall eating experience. As I'd mentioned before, we have ion channels and we have G-coupled protein receptors. Understanding the relationship between the two and how they affect the overall eating experience, and as well as influence the amount of sodium you can actually reduce in a product, is paramount. So with Kerry being vertically integrated in fermentation, it allows us to very well understand the role of the G-coupled protein receptor, and through our taste sense technology, understand the role and provide solutions that drive the tapping or the signal of the ion, which then signals to the brain. Putting those together with the in-house flavor technology gives us a tremendous amount of flexibility in designing bespoke solutions, depending upon the amount of reduction that you're going after at the end of the day. I'll turn it over to Julie.
Thank you, Matthew. As a taste and nutrition company that we're working globally as well, we are very well equipped to help deliver on salt, on sweetness optimization, but also we have some tools in our bucket. Shannon, if you want to move over to the next one. We have a deep breath that we use as well with Cheryl. We have teams in place to help you not only on development, but also on regulatory, to help you understand what are the rules in place in each of the country. Most likely today for North America, but if you also wanted to know what's going on in other regions, this is the knowledge that we can help to provide, and mostly for the upcoming front of pack labeling recommendation that will be taking place in January 2026 in Canada. So this is something that we have people in place that are working on a day-to-day basis with understanding the understanding of these rules to help guide our development team, but also our customers. And as another tool, we also have some preparatory research. So Shannon has brought us through our Sensibly Sweet study that we've made earlier this year, and that is bringing to each of the regions. So not only North America, but we have that from several countries, as she did mention. We can bring the different aspect and what type of sugar reduction the consumers are expecting, how much sugar reduction they are also expecting, and if they have a sweetener in preference for each of the product category as well. So great way, you have a link to the slide to access some of the content as well. And as a yearly project, we also do taste chart and taste trends. And this is helping us to take everything together and put it in place to help our customer better understand what they can achieve. In the taste chart, you will not only know what type of flavor are growing or really well established as the mainstream, but you will also have an idea of what are the key ingredients to focus on, what are the emerging ingredients, and also nutrition claims that are in the scope of each region. We also build ourselves, we have a great team globally that are building tools to help our internal team, but also external people as our customers to build calculators to help us either calculate the impact of our solution with some LCA calculator with our DaySense technology, but also as a food waste calculator, either for consumer, but also for our customers to understand what is the impact of their product on the market. And if you move over to the next one, you've heard our team talking about TasteSense. TasteSense is a huge toolbox of solution that are all labeled as a natural flavors. So it's keeping a great clean label for our customers. We are also having different type of solution that could fit either your key challenges and your key needs. So either being cost, being taste, or different type of application as well. And all in the scope of having better nutritionalized products. So we have it on the sweet side. So we have sweetener and sweetener modulation that will increase the sweetness of the product. We will also have masker that could either go through masking the off note of some of the sweetener, as Angela was talking, but also if you wanted to use any of the other tool on the market for sodium reduction, we can also help mask, for example, potassium chloride. Mouthfeel is a key one that sometimes we might keep forgetting a bit, but mouthfeel would be definitely the pillar where it will bring the sensation as well in your mouth. It either be the syrupy type as sugar would normally do, and different type, or bubby in your mouth. Could also bring fattiness and saturated fat product, but would also help you build a bit of the depth and complexity with umami notes as well in your mouth. We have the taste and salt that will bring salty notes to your product, and other types of beverage as well if you're wanting to have healthier product through alcohol type products. So think of mocktail or better for you cocktail type. We also have our portfolio of sensation items where it will bring you some alcohol and sensation in your mouth. So either low alcohol, making you feel like a standard alcohol, or no alcohol and have that same sensation without having any of the bad aspect of the alcohol. And through the whole breadth of, as I say, like overarching team of what we could achieve at Kerry. So we are a partner of choice to help you get tastier product, healthier product, and we can do that with a global approach and holistically as well. So we have different pillars to focus on, as we said, through some of the research, but we also have sensory, so we can have some trend panel as well to look and taste of the product. We can customize some of the product with them and do some analytical as well. We have great taste and application teams that are working very well hand in hand to get the better output for your product. We have modulation product, as I did just mention. We have sweet and savory flavors. So sometimes when you do reduce sodium or you wanted to reduce sugar as well, there might be an impact on the flavor as well, where you might need to change your flavors. So there's a great work done to ensure that we have the right flavors in our portfolio to achieve better sodium reduction and sugar reduction. And we have, as I said, great expertise worldwide as well. So no matter what your needs are, reach out to us. We have nutritionist teams that are working on getting better solution as well to achieve our sustainable nutrition target. And we have a great team, a regulatory team that Cheryl is part of, that are helping us, ensuring that we're building solution and we have the tools to equip our teams in order to do that. And a key pillar for us will also be sustainability. So having sustainability in mind while we build those tools, ensuring that if a product is tasting great, there's less waste because people will consume it. If the solutions are also well produced, it's helping on getting better on the scope 3 as well. We have a great solution that we can make some calculation out of. And we say clean label, but also having labels that are consumer friendly, and then consumer will also recognize. So I think we are a good partner of choice to achieve that and help you on getting better product on the market. That being said, I will turn it over to Sarah for the Q&A portion.
Great. Cheryl, Julie, Shannon, Angela, and Matt, thank you again for joining us today. So as you said, we've reached the Q&A portion of our session. So as a reminder, if you have a question, please submit it using the Q&A panel at the bottom, at the bottom of your screen. We'll go ahead and keep monitoring that. So if folks have questions, please go ahead and start populating that Q&A button at the bottom. But I'm going to start us off. So I think to any member of the team, happy to get responses to this question. So you mentioned the national strategy that came out of the White House last fall. I think that presents a lot of different targets for companies to aim at when we think about how we as food manufacturers can contribute to that national strategy. So just curious, from your vantage points, what are some of the biggest challenges in sort of creating products while thinking about the goals of the national strategy? What are some of the roadblocks that we're sort of all tackling as we look at what that means for our individual products?
So I would say from the sweet angle, it is very much trying to target what the consumer's final goal is and what they're looking for on their product label. So here's the new regulation. What should my package look like? What do I want my labeling to look like? And what is my demographic that I'm most trying to target? So it's a combination of looking at which tools will bring back the taste and the of this newly nutritious product, but also balance out to make sure that it's a clean label, or we're using natural high intensity sweeteners versus artificial, or natural flavors versus extract, etc. So it's important to balance out all of those items. And that's a big challenge, to really have a true understanding of what the consumer needs.
Angela, maybe as a quick follow-up to that, what kind of time frames? I think that the timing of this is sometimes things that are lost too, as we think about goals that may be kind of artificially set in some of these national documents versus the actual time to market. I think that's something that we find ourselves talking to agencies and lawmakers a lot about quite a bit. So can you just give a sense of, like, it's not like we flip a switch and everything is new, right?
Wouldn't that be nice? No, it really depends very much on the product and the shelf life, stability testing, etc., that each consumer brand requires. But I would say from Kerry's point of view, we can do a very quick turnaround because we are core in these type of technologies, and we have an extensive and well-educated group of support systems in our applications, flavorists, and our regulatory. It really that knowledge base coming together. I would say that you could get quicker turnaround. So probably, something in the months for, weeks and days for the first round of things, but probably at months if it's, from start to, we're having this conversation to when you could lock down a formula.
I would add that, for salt on the savory side, I think the largest challenge is the change itself. Yeah. Salt is very cost efficient, we all know. And as we said, has impacts several different ways. I think getting really understanding that this is truly an unmet need by consumers helps the industry make that first step. And we're seeing that, our clients are certainly realizing that the front of the pack is coming. They need to get ahead of it. The technology has certainly moved light years ahead of where it was 10 years ago, when this was first being looked at. So getting over that fear of change, what does this mean to my brand? What does this mean to the repurchase? And that's where we can help guide them. So whether that's through sensory research, really understanding the end application, make sure we're designing for that right target consumer, as Angela had said, and what is that final amount of sodium you're going to need? Is this a medium-term plan to build over time? Do you go for a very sharp reduction? So it's that understanding, getting comfortable with the idea. But having worked 17 years in Europe, and when the governments got involved and started to mandate, like in the UK with the FSA, it had a huge positive effect for the industry in total. Yeah, so I only see positives moving forward for the entire food industry.
That's really helpful. Thank you. I'm going to ask one more time if any of the other participants have any questions. And as a reminder, if you think of things afterwards, we can certainly help facilitate answers from the Kerry team. So I'm not seeing any more questions in the Q&A. So with that, I'm going to say, Kerry team, thank you again for joining us. And thank you to Kerry for their continued partnership with the Consumer Brands Association. We have several other industry insight and industry solutions sessions scheduled in the coming weeks. So you can visit the Consumer Brands events and education page, and the link is in the chat or will be provided to view those sessions and be able to register. So with that, thanks again, and we will see you soon. Have a great day.